be really honest with yourself. And if the answer is no to those two questions, then you have to really come to reality check and go, why am I working so damn hard, asking so much from people who can't even give me what I really want? Welcome back to the 365 Driven Podcast. Today, I want to talk about a topic that I have personal experience in. And I get asked this a lot of times on different shows as I'm a guest about how do you start a different career? How do you reinvent yourself? How to, take the initiative to go start that business or launch that personal brand or build a lifestyle business. There's a lot of different ways that we can change our careers and our income trajectories. And I wanted really to talk about the thought process that I went through because I'm coming up on 10 years, okay? 2015 was the last time I actually had an official salary with a W-2 attached. And as a few of you know, I used to work for major oil companies and oil and gas career, project management, engineering for over 20 years, and decided in my mid 40s that I was just kind of done with that and I wanted to go pursue different things and find things that had more purpose and more meaning for my life and things that I was more excited about. And I want to kind of walk you through the entire process that I went through, and maybe you'll get some good tips from this or get some good advice, hopefully, maybe some encouragement along the way, and understanding that, yeah, there are things that maybe you could fear, but understand that things aren't so bad. So let me put some age context in here. So I started to notice this really around mid to late 30s. And the title of the show is Midlife Career Changes, and but understand that this could apply to you at any age of the listener. I'm just kind of really targeting to the people based on the experience that I've had because I think it seems more difficult for most people to try something completely out of their career path or their profession. As we start to get a little older, we're approaching 40 or 50, and maybe you got 20 something years in some career path or some industry, and you think there's a lot of value there. There might be, but here's how the process went for me. So 2015 was the last official W-2 salary year, and I've been consulting and working as a business coach and helping people with scaling and exit strategies for their businesses since then for 10 years now. And I'll tell you that the last 10 years has gone by really fast. And it definitely hasn't been boring. It's been very exciting. A lot of different things have been going on in my life, and I've gotten pulled in many different directions, which I never saw coming, and they've all been good things. And so maybe that gives you a little bit of a realization or a comfort level that things could be better than you think. So, what was it that I started to think about in my mid 30s? It's when I started to gain the awareness. I hadn't taken the action to go full time and do my own thing by then, but I was gaining the awareness. And I would actually see, even going back a little bit further, I started my first business, LS1 Tech and performance trucks.net, those companies. I was 28 when I started those, but I was always working full time pursuing the engineering career because I was equally driven in entrepreneurship as well as corporate. And I put myself through school as an engineer, and it took me 7 years. I was working full time as a pipe fitter, as a welder, waiting tables on the weekends, and even turning wrenches on cars. And so I knew that I had a lot of time and a lot of money invested into a degree, and I didn't want to air quotes waste that. And it was really a sunk cost fallacy. And if you've never heard that phrase, I want you to get used to hearing that phrase and understanding what it means. So, what is a sunk cost? A sunk cost is whatever education or degree that you've had, because that investment you made in time, it's sunk. You're not going to get that back. You're not going to go reset the clock. So it's a cost that you no doubt have invested in, but it's gone. It's a sunk cost. The time, the money, the effort, all that stuff, you can't get it back. So when you start to make decisions based on if it's a sunk cost or not, you come up with different solutions sometimes. And for me, even though I had invested and created that education and built the years and the reputation in the industry and stuff like that, I had to ask myself at that point, is this really what I want to do for the next 20, 30 years of my life? And you have to have a really hard look at where you are and where you would like to be and understand that, do I really want to do this for another 20, 30 years? Because that's what most people work. Let's say average 65, right? Retirement. And when you start to ask yourself that question, and you've only been in it 20 years, which is a long time. If those of you that have been in the industry for 10 plus years, congrats. That's actually a pretty long time. You've invested some time there. And you hopefully have a well lit career path ahead of you. So you could see the way it's going and you can see the progression and you can see the organizational chart and the opportunities that you may get to different levels and different earning levels and maybe different authority levels. And maybe those of you that are driven by leadership like I was, you could see that career path. And I did. And that's why I pursued it. And I did pursue it with a lot of passion. But certain things started to become more aware as I was climbing the ladder, and you start getting closer to the fire, so to speak, as you get closer to the executive levels at some of these companies. And sometimes you just don't really feel like your alignment, your core values align with the industry or the company that you happen to be working at. And it starts to create a really strong disconnect in what you want to achieve and what you're being faced with on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. And I would say that I started to gain awareness that the industry just really wasn't there for me. And I saw how they were mistreating people with their cyclical layoffs every 7, 8 years. There's massive layoffs. I believe there's even massive layoffs going on right now in that very industry. And it seemed like every 7, 8 years it was just going and going, and then it would take a dive, and then everybody get their heads chopped off, and you had to sit on the bench and wait for something to come around and recruit you back in. And a lot of times you're starting back at a level that's a little bit lower than the one you left at. And anyone that's gone through that kind of a process can definitely feel, I've been there before many times, especially working in that volatile industry. And as I started climbing the ladder, I started realizing that maybe the talk about treating their employees and such was actually just lip service. And they say the things that you want to hear, but they don't really demonstrate that, do they? And so I decided, I'm tired of making these companies, these multi-billion dollar companies, wealthier, and they're just discarding good people. I loved all the people that I worked with. There were some amazing people on my teams. And I hate to say it, many of them are still stuck in the same situation that they were 10 years ago. And they're probably around this time closer to the age that I was when I departed that. And they're probably having these thoughts. You're probably having these thinkings about, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Like, this is it? Wake up every morning, make the same commute, do the same tasks, make the same commute home, same routine over and over and over. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. And so I took that hard leap in, 2015 to go do what you guys know me for now. And that's helping small business owners. And that's based on the other experience I built in entrepreneurship. And I had really good success in that. But it was just more fulfilling and it was more purposeful. And the thing is that I also want to warn you that it wasn't easy to do that, right? It wasn't easy to essentially pay myself nothing for 2 years. And fortunately, I was in a financial position to be able to do that. But I don't want to gloss over the fact that things are going to be super easy for you when you decide to go full time pursuing some passion project or different business or something that you'd like to create for yourself. It's not easy because with entrepreneurship, there's a certain level of skill sets that you have to develop in order to be successful as an entrepreneur. And unfortunately, I've seen way too many people that were really good supporting role type employees that maybe they were the best of this position. Let's say, let's start with the fields. Let's say a automotive mechanic. You might be the best mechanic in your city. And everybody wants you to work on your car, and you made the cars the fastest and the best looking. And so you get this wild hair idea that, hey, I'm just going to I'm going to start my own shop because everybody's telling me I'm the best mechanic. So I'm going to go start my own shop, and it's going to be hugely successful because I'm the best mechanic. Well, I hate to tell you, this is some bad news. I would say the skill set that you're bringing in as one of the best mechanics in your city is probably only worth about 40% of your odds of success. And now you're thinking, well, how is that possible? Because I'm the best mechanic, and I should be able to create a shop and be the best shop in the city, right? No, it's not like that because although those skills that you have earned and learned are valuable, they haven't taught you how to be successful at business. And when you start to create a business where you've got employees and you got to understand marketing and financials and accounting and all the different avenues of entrepreneurship, you're going to have to be wearing all those hats until you can earn enough profit to be able to afford to farm some of those tasks out to different people and delegate things to the people that are frankly better than you at doing those things. And so if you have to think about building a company, you might start thinking about this now while you still have a pretty good job or a reliable job, is to start cutting back on some of your daily spending and start saving to build a runway. That way, when you do decide to go create something, or maybe even better, start something while you're still working at a job and have that fund your dream. There's nothing wrong with building a side hustle. I mean, I wrote the book Side Hustle Millionaire, right? There's nothing wrong with creating a business while you're still working. And in fact, it's actually one of the most wise things I would say that you should do, is because you actually have a higher percentage of success when your bills are paid externally and the excess can go towards the dream that you're building, right? And I would say the only caveat there is don't build something that's a conflict of interest with the company that you're working for. You should always be focused on serving the company that's writing your paychecks. But if it's something outside of that and it's not going to compete with them directly on business, or you borrow their customer list, don't do anything unethical like that. It'll get you in a lot of water, hot water, and potentially some lawsuits, which would really crush your entrepreneurial dreams right at the beginning. So be smart about that, but think about the things that you would like to create. Maybe you got some interest or hobbies, or you see business ideas that people aren't capitalizing on in your area, and you have the evenings or the weekends to work on these kind of things. And understand that you have to build that runway. You have to build some kind of a financial runway. And I'm not talking about a lot of money, because I don't want money to be the excuse that you're not creating something also. You see, when I talk about starting new businesses, a lot of times people will ask, what business should I start? And I always give them the advice, well, what are you good at? And what is something that people keep asking you for advice on? If you have this pattern of your friends or family always asking for your advice on some subject that might even not even be related to your profession or your career, pay attention to those clues, because it might be an indicator of something that you've built some expertise in, or you've demonstrated some positive results in, and people are aware of that and they see that you're getting these results. They start to get curious and they're going to ask you because you position yourself as an expert or authority, or just someone has to actually have experience doing things, and that's not a bad thing. It's good to have those people asking you for the advice. The entire time I was working in engineering, a lot of people knew that I was building these automotive businesses at the same time, and they could see the hints of my lifestyle and the different cars that I was owning, and custom homes and stuff like this. And they would ask me, like, how are you affording all this stuff? And I would tell them about small business, the stuff I'm sharing with you guys on this podcast, or I share from stages nowadays. And I started to pay attention that even though I was building companies, it wasn't my intention to teach other people how to do that. It was just, I was having fun doing it. I was getting good results, and I didn't mind sharing what I was learning along the way. And eventually I started to realize that maybe I could create more impact in this world by teaching other people the things that I understood and the lessons I've learned, and save them years of heartache or tens of thousands of dollars of mistakes. Like, I've definitely taken them on the chin a few times. And that's how I decided to launch 365 Driven and write the book and launch this podcast. But it didn't all come in that sequence. I didn't understand exactly what I wanted to do when I decided to leave oil and gas. I just decided that I didn't want to do that for the next 30 years. So, how do you understand if what you're doing today is really meant for you? How do you really understand if you really want to stay in that career? Well, for me, I guess there's some good visual indicators. Maybe you have a dream lifestyle. Maybe you've already understood what you would like to experience or own and have as a lifestyle. I think most of us daydream about things that we'd like to have, and sometimes these daydreams keep coming back around, and you can't really ignore them, and you start to realize, like, I really should be doing something to work towards that. And honestly, are you going to get there in the next few years with your job, then maybe you're keeping your job is the right answer. I'm not telling you to quit or go do something different, but maybe you are one of the very few fortunate people that loves your career. You love the people you work with. The income is great. The flexibility and the hours is great. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Stay where you're at if you're happy with that. But if you're not happy, and it's probably those of you that are still listening or watching this show, listen on because maybe there's some clues here. If we know our career trajectory, it's like I'm at this level and my supervisor is at this level and my supervisor's supervisor or their boss is at that level. And if that's the natural progression of your career over a period of years of you demonstrating good results, then you can kind of glean of what the examples are. You could probably even look on HR or job listings and figure out what their earning is and how much more it is from you. And maybe you've been to their house or you've seen their lifestyle or the cars they drive, and you go, what, that'd be the great lifestyle. That's exactly what I want. Then okay, that's great. Maybe you can get what they give, right? But when you start to have dreams that are, let's say, unrealistic, as people would label that, and you look around and you go, hey, does my supervisor have the lifestyle that I dream about? Do they truly have the lifestyle that I dream about? And if the answer is no, then maybe you look one level higher and go, okay, my boss's boss, does that person have the dream lifestyle that I've always daydreamed about? Are they driving the vehicles that I want to own? Do they have the house, the family? Do they have the free time to go experience the world? Like, be really honest with yourself. And if the answer is no to those two questions, then you have to really come to reality check and go, why am I working so damn hard, asking so much from people who can't even give me what I really want? And that's not to sound egotistical or make you sound like you're better than them, but realistically, if the people above you do not have what you want, then how realistically possible is it for them to be able to offer that to you? It's not. It's just literally not going to happen. And so maybe that's one of the visual indicators for yourself and go, okay, I like this job. It's good for now, but it's not going to get me where I want to go. It's not going to get me to the end result that I keep thinking about. And so I remember very vividly having these thoughts, maybe even my late 20s, early 30s. But I wasn't really ready to take any actions on that kind of stuff because I was doing really well in business and I was doing well in my career. And so until it became a core value misalignment and me not really wanting to be employed at these companies anymore because of how I felt, that's when it started to push me to go do something different because there've been times where I worked for a really, higher earning position. I would say multiple six-figure salary type position where I didn't even want to get out of bed to go to that job. Like I disliked that job so much that I didn't even want to get up. And I could tell you that alarm clock going off at 6 in the morning so I could get ready in time to make a 45-minute commute through Houston traffic to sit with a supervisor that was passive aggressive and condescending really just didn't really sit well with me. And I felt like a trapped animal in a cage. And I just wanted to be happy and I wanted to be a very productive employee and be a high performer and contribute to the team. But sometimes, let's be real, the personalities that you work with are not going to allow that. And we've all heard the phrase that most people quit their boss, not the company. And I'm a big believer of that. I've seen a lot of good companies that were ruined by really mediocre middle managers. And I've seen a lot of good employees leave because their supervisors really weren't worth a crap. And so I just started to realize that this is really kind of a bureaucracy game. It's like office politics. It's all about tenure versus talent. And I say, I'm tapping out. I just don't want to play this game anymore. I want to go contribute in a bigger way. And so that was the driver for me, is to really think about, okay, if I decide to leave, which here's another thing, is most people will not understand if you make a career change, especially in your middle age. If you're well known in an industry or you've gone 10 plus years and you've got this, education or certifications, and you decide you want to go do something completely different, you're going to have some of the people that you actually thought were friends that won't understand. And they may not necessarily be critics or naysayers or haters or anything like that, but they're just not going to understand. And that's okay because it's not for them to understand. The only one that needs to understand is you and your partner, your wife, your husband. They need to understand because that's going to be your support system for the next few months to a few years. And they have to really understand that their betting is on you're betting your lifestyle and your current income to go pursue something. And so I know that was a lot, and it's still fresh in my mind, even though that was like 10 years ago. It's still very fresh in my mind. The thought processes I was having on a daily basis that, at the end of the day, it just boiled down to I'm not happy. I'm not happy, and I feel like I'm just spinning my wheels and going through the motions. And I'm around a bunch of other people that are earning the same money as me. We're all making good money, but we're all just tolerating our jobs. We're just tolerating our professions because they pay us too much to quit. And when you start to realize that, I would say half the population is willing to put their dreams literally on a shelf and just let them collect dust because of a pension or because of a benefits package or because of insurance, it makes me really ask myself the question, is your dream really big enough? Is your dream really strong enough? If your dream was really strong enough and really big enough, would you put it on a shelf and let it collect dust because of a benefits package? That just doesn't make any sense, does it? If a benefits package is all it's going to take to make you stop pursuing the dreams that you've had your entire life, then I would say that you didn't really have a strong enough dream, or maybe your purpose wasn't strong enough, or maybe your fear was way stronger than your purpose. And to be able to do things to achieve the things that you truly want to in your life, you're going to have to face those fears. You're going to have to start realizing that your purpose should be more important than your fears. And whenever you make that switch where your purpose goes back above your fear, I guarantee you're going to start to take some more dedicated actions and start to do things to move closer to your purpose. And I feel really bad that there's literally millions of people around this world, maybe billions, that just kind of go through the motions every day. Same day, Groundhog Day, over and over and over. Little 3% bumps in pay every year to match the inflation rate. Having to haggle over making an extra $1 or $2 an hour as a salary worker. And you're probably wondering, well, what do you mean? I'm a salary worker. Well, I hate to tell you, most salary systems, payroll systems, are still based on an hourly rate, just multiplied times 40 hours a week. And so when we're key punching in your salary, it's based on an hourly rate. You could do the math and figure out what you make per hour. And having to negotiate for $1 here, $2 there, like it's kind of absurd when you think about that kind of stuff, especially as a professional with 20 years of experience. It's kind of a humbling experience in that. And so I launched and I decided in, 2016, I was only going to take up consulting roles and do things more part-time while I was building my business. And I was helping my wife, Lisa, build her real estate business. And things have been going really well, but it didn't start that way. It was tough, especially when you feel like there's a lot of people in your support network, your friends and family that will support what you're doing. And here's the weird thing about this, and I want to share this because I'll give this from a speech perspective. But you ever start something new, and maybe you go to social media, maybe you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and maybe this is a weight loss journey, maybe this is starting a new brand, or maybe you got a new job and you want to announce it, and you announce it, and everybody claps and like, hey, good job, congrats, and you feel this false sense of, well, this isn't going to be so bad. I have all these people to support me. Like they're cheering for me. Like I thought this is going to be like hard. I think it's going to be empty. Spoiler alert: that only lasts for about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. You'll be posting updates about your new business, and you're going to start to notice that fewer and fewer people will like your post or say anything, and you're going to be thinking, well, maybe they're just too busy. Maybe they're excited for me to start this thing or this weight loss journey, and but they got their own lives. I get that. And A month into it, you're going to be realizing like nobody's liking your stuff anymore. Nobody's, saying anything. Nobody's even engaging with your stuff. And you're still excited about it, hopefully, even only a month in, but you're going to start to see that the support kind of just falls off a cliff. And it's really weird how that situation happens. And I've had this conversation with dozens and dozens and dozens of people who have done things outside of their norm. And we've all experienced this very similar reaction to people. And here's the thing is that I call it the no man's land. It's like the battlefront. It's like the no man's land between the two front lines of the opposing sides. And you're not supposed to be out there and it's kind of lonely. And like if you make it across, like awesome, because there's bullets flying and you can't really see it. Might be friendly fire, maybe firing behind you, but it's just a dangerous area. And unfortunately that no man's land for starting something new or reinventing yourself, I would say that lasts at least 6 months, where it's going to feel really lonely, where maybe you launch the podcast and you speak into this microphone every week and fewer people listening to it. And you're thinking, wow, man, I had even my family's not even listening to this anymore. Maybe you're creating social media content and nobody's watching your videos. Nobody's even saying anything. You're like, wow, maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe it's just I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I should just go back to doing what I was doing. And unfortunately, because of that no man's land in business, maybe you're in that mode right now. Most people quit. Most people can go really hard for 2 or 3 months. And when they feel like they're not being supported and nobody's sending them leads and nobody's buying the things that they thought that would fly off the shelves, they quit. And it ruins a lot of people who would have been potentially great as entrepreneurs. Maybe one of you listening quit something too soon in the past. Maybe you could have been an outstanding entrepreneur and got some amazing results and achieved everything you wanted had you just held out a little longer and stuck it through for that first year. You see, there's a reason I call my brand 365 driven, because I want you to dedicate a full year to doing something if you're going to start. In fact, when people ask me, hey, what about starting a business and doing this or launching a podcast or whatever, right? Anything or fitness journey, all these things that are transformative. Guys, my honest response to them is if you're not willing to commit for at least 1 year, don't even start. And I know that sounds harsh, but I want you to understand it's coming from a place of tough love. Because if you do not have the mettle, the courage, the grit, the tenacity, and the drive to even pursue your dream hard for 1 year, I would dare say that you probably don't deserve it because you didn't earn it. And that's tough to hear. And I've had that conversation, I've received that conversation from mentors in my life. Fortunately, just being truthful. If you can't stick it through, then why do you think you deserve what other people really desire? And so here's the thing that starts to shift around that 9-month mark through the no man's land and no support. You'll start to see that as long as you've been consistent and you're sharing those updates and you're creating the content, your podcast hasn't skipped a beat, people will start to notice how consistent you are. And if you've been showing your journey, which you guys know I'm big on showing your journey, the good and the bad, they're going to see the small progress you're making as the weeks go by. And they're going to notice that you've changed and improved in whatever you're pursuing. We all improve. It's almost impossible not to improve if you're really focused on doing things to make some real changes. And so around 9 months, people will see that you're consistent and they'll start to maybe like your post again. Like, you know what? He or she is just really demonstrating that they got some grit. I give them that. They're not getting rich from doing this yet, but they've got some really good, good grit, and they're putting in the consistent work. I have to support them there because most people would have quit at 3 months. And you keep this going, and maybe in a year, People are starting to respond like, "Hey, keep it going. Like, these are awesome. I love it. I remember back when you started this thing and you weren't that good at it. And look what you're doing now." And these people that you thought had left your support circle start suddenly reappearing between 9 and 12 months. And here's the thing, those people really never left your support circle during that whole no man's land. They never left, but they watched you in silence because they had their doubts. So they may like you as a human. They might think you're a great person. They want to see you succeed, but they're watching in silence because so many people will call their shots and then not take any follow up actions and then they'll quit. And so most people, including myself, I would say that including yourself, we judge people this way. We don't want to invest a lot of emotional energy or be a cheerleader of someone unless they've proven that they've earned our support. And that takes time. That takes you demonstrating that you're going to deliver on what you say. And then they start to support you again because you've earned their support and they're willing to invest their emotional energy and capital, maybe even invest money into the business and doing the things that you would like to sell and work on. And so you have to see it through that first year. And it's critical, even if it feels like nothing's working, you have to go through that. 18 months in, 2 years in, you start to be tagged or be mentioned across the internet by people that you've never met, never heard of, but maybe they read your book or they listened to your podcast and they had some good insights and takeaways and they go implement those actions and they get their own results and they wanted to thank you. And that's the things that you start to see as momentum starts to build. And it's an amazing situation to be in. It's amazing. I can't tell you how many times when I get these messages and I feel like I'm getting choked up just talking about it, that you've changed my life. And they tell you examples of what you've done to change their life, even though you didn't really have a direct, you weren't directly involved in what they did. It was their actions, but something you said or demonstrated or showed them or encouraged them to do something and they got the result and they've gone on to do things that are amazing themselves. That's when you start to realize like there is a much greater purpose and much greater fulfillment than just going through the motions with your career. Unless you have a career that provides that for you, awesome. Stick with it. Not telling you to leave your dream careers. But for all of you that are out there listening and watching this that aren't happy with what you're doing and you're worried about reinventing yourself and maybe you're making a bunch of excuses right now about why you aren't starting the business, you just got to start and you don't have to have all the answers. Like I'll give you an example. Even when I started LS1 Tech, I was 28 years old. And I remember very vividly. I was actually going through a really hard time in my life. Had a newborn son. Oil and gas had me laid off. I was unemployed for 6 months. I didn't have enough experience, and nobody was definitely hiring an inexperienced engineer at that time. So here I was with an engineering degree, and I was waiting tables with a newborn and working on cars on the weekends, and struggling with student loan debt and credit card debt because I was having to pay my rent and groceries off of credit cards. And even though all that crap was going on, and I actually believe that I was clinically depressed in that time. I just, didn't want to see a therapist and I didn't have any money to see a therapist. And so I just remember being in this really deep, dark funk that sometimes I would drive to work and I would arrive at the job site and I didn't even remember driving there. It was like I blacked out and I would just arrive at the parking lot. I was so going through the motions and I was like, I just need to do something different. I need to create an outlet for something and I need to build something. I just feel like I'm over here begging for jobs and I'm just taking this and that and nothing's really working out for me. So I need to go build my own thing. You could beg for a seat at someone's table over and over and over, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a seat at the table. But if you can go figure out how to build your own table, you got pretty good odds of sitting at the head of that table. And that's what I did. And I didn't know all the answers. I didn't understand everything about business. It was my first business. But I did have some technical skills that I taught myself about how to use Photoshop and how to design some really simple web pages with, just drag and drop stuff and alter things. And so I taught myself little bitty skills that, anybody can learn nowadays in a week. and I figured out how to go create something. And I didn't understand all the business principles. I didn't understand all the accounting. I didn't understand anything about the marketing, none of that. But I started it. And to be real, we didn't even use that website and create it into an LLC to an actual formation. We didn't even convert it to an LLC until several months in, and it was already by then probably making about $10,000 a month profit. We didn't even have an LLC. We were just depositing the checks into our personal bank accounts and using our own social security for the tax filings those years. So I didn't know all the answers. I didn't have all the answers given to me. We didn't have YouTube and podcasts and all these books at hand that easily teach people how to do things. I'll tell you, it's a lot easier nowadays. A lot. I would say 10 times easier now to go start a business because of all the information that's readily available out there. But for some reason, you're still not doing it. Why is that? Maybe it's because you realize that the thing that you've been procrastinating is really the thing that's going to change your life. And you've assigned a lot of gravity to the thing that could potentially change your life and create that dream life outcome for you. You just sidelined all these little tasks, learning about business here. What is this? Creating a business checking account. All this stuff is really simple, by the way. Very simple. If you really put some time into it, you could have an EIN number, which is essentially your social security for your business. You could create an LLC and have a business checking account and start a Stripe or a PayPal account to accept payments. You could probably have all that done in a week if you really wanted to. And it's not that hard, but you're using those things to keep you from pursuing something. And I want to encourage you to just go do the thing. Take the next step. Go create the LLC or a DBA if you don't even need legal protection. Like, just go create a DBA. You can Google or use Chat GPT to figure that out. You'll have it figured out in less than a few days. You'll have that. And I just want you to understand, like, if you're not fulfilled, you're not happy, and you don't think that you can be doing what you're doing for the next 20, 30, or if you're younger, 40 years, then it's just time to be really realistic with yourself and go, hey, what is it that I would rather be doing? And I don't want to make these decisions based on a degree I've already invested in or how many years of experience I've got in this industry. Like, if those things do not float your boat and you do not love what you're doing and that degree is just come and gone, that's fine. Those are sunk costs. Do not make big decisions for the rest of your life that's going to impact your fulfillment or your potential happiness or the dream lifestyle you want based on sunk costs. They're gone. Those costs are gone. If you can utilize them, great. If not, don't worry about that. What do you need to do to get to the goals that you have for your life? So that's just really wanted to share some words of encouragement for those of you that are in that situation. I've been there before. I get it. And it's not easy, but I'll tell you what, if you have the courage to finally take those baby steps to start moving towards that goal, you won't regret it if you can stick it through for that first year. You won't regret it looking back 10 years later and realizing how much you've changed and improved, and the new network of people that you're going to get to discover because you're doing something completely out of your original box that you were assigned. And I can't wait to see those results. And I hope that you enjoyed this message and take some actions, guys. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next episode.